joining us from all over the place. Thanks for taking time out of your busy days to listen to our webinar today. Just to give you a bit of introduction, you've got Mark Ormond here, Managing Director of JOMC. I'm going to be leading the session alongside my colleagues, Claire Solomon, Managing Director of Hill Solomon, and Shade Foster from JOMC, who's going to be doing the management of the webinar for us today. So today we're going to be talking about the impact of social media, how we can use that to promote better safety culture and give us a better safety performance in the business. In other words, how do we get our workforce talking, typing and tweeting about safety? I'm going to kick off by giving you a very brief bit of background as to who Hill Solomon and JOMC are, talk about some of the problems that we see in terms of getting workforce more engaged nowadays, certainly in today's modern world, talk about how we can use social media to overcome some of that and collect some of the information we need to help improve safety in the business. We'll use through a demo of how we've used social media. We created our own tool called Engage and to take advantage of some of the benefits social media has got to improve safety performance in the business, and how we've linked that with some of the sort of latest marketing tools and techniques. Just a bit of administration for the webinar. We've got about 50 minutes for today's session, and hopefully we'll leave some time for questions at the end of the session. If you do have anything burning, however, just to note, we have muted everybody in the call. We're not just being rude, but it means that when we mute people, the sound's a little bit better. If you do have a burning question, you'll see you've got a little hands up button on the right-hand side of the screen. If you've done that, then Sinead will be informed and she'll let me know there's a question, and I can unmute you and let you ask the question. Hope that will make sense, and so we'll kick off our webinar. A brief bit of background to JOMC Hill Solomon. We're a partnership of two organisations working together, and most of what we do in terms of the work with our clients is helping organisations to improve their safety culture. So that's helping those organisations assess and understand where they are in terms of safety culture, and then develop tools to improve that safety culture, whether that's helping improve leadership, engaging the workforce more effectively, and using all sorts of high impact methods to do that workforce engagement, such as videos, awareness tools, live theatre events, and obviously some of the latest technology which I'm going to be going through today. And what marks us out in terms of being successful in this area is our focus on sustainability. So how do we use all of these techniques to make a long-term difference to the business we work with? And you can see there some of the results we've achieved, which we're really proud of. And because of this success with these, it's left us in an enviable position of being able to talk to our clients on a basis about some of the changes they face in terms of improving safety in the business. There's a lot of safety professionals on the webinar today, and I don't know how you feel, but when I talk to safety professionals about some of the challenges they face, I get the impression that for many people it's sort of a struggle with regards to safety, finding ways of constantly engaging the workforce and getting them involved in health and safety improvement. So some of the barriers we see on a day-to-day basis is health and safety is not the most exciting in the world. I don't know about you, but sometimes it can be a bit embarrassing, say, to dinner parties to admit what you do, because some of the perceptions in the media nowadays about health and safety and the impact of that. See health and safety often as relentlessly negative. You know, there's always a focus on things that go wrong, people being hurt, and the sort of negative consequences of health and safety, if you like. Business see health and safety as simply adding costs. So what do we have to spend now on improving this rather than adding value? Whereas for the work we do, we know it really can add value if you get it right. Often people see it as a really complicated and technical area of business. So rules, regulations, all of that are constantly talked about when it comes to health and safety. The course, with all these barriers is what they're doing is they're preventing non-health and safety people being safety. And if you are to continue to improve in health and safety and specifically start to understand where risks are in the business and how you identify them, understand and manage them, then you do need involvement from non-health and safety people in the business. I guess that's fairly obvious. What's interesting when you look at major disasters out there, a lot of people talk about this unforeseen event. And a good analogy for this is the black swan. We hear this expression being used a lot nowadays. It was something that came from 16th century London as a statement of impossibility. I mentioned that all swans must be white because historical records of swans in the day reported that they had white feathers. The swans were discovered in Western Australia in 1697. So people use this sort of black swan expression today to describe accidents and incidents that people thought were unforeseen, but actually the information was always there. And to illustrate this, Cass Business School in London recently put together a report looking at 18 different major crises, health and safety and otherwise. This report included disasters such as the Texas City explosion, the Buntsfield fire of 2005, and the rail disasters between 2000 and 2002, so the Great Hatfield and post-Farley accidents. What said, if you get a chance to check it out, very interesting report, is that the information was there in various forms, but the organisations had developed a sort of risk blindness and didn't really believe that these black swan events were going to happen. And one of the major contributing factors was all about poor communication up in the chain. So the people managing the risks didn't really understand what the risks were because of the effective communication in the organisation. And so you see this at a sort of grander scale in terms of these crises, but we also see this ourselves. Working clients, this struggle to information you need to predict and prevent accidents. A really interesting example of this, one of our clients that we've been working with over the last couple of years, was who came to us because they'd actually had a sign fall from the front of one of their stores, the root cause being faulty maintenance. Now, fortunately, when the sign fell, it didn't actually hit anybody, but you can imagine the impact that it would have had for this organisation. It's, say, dropped on a fire, a young child or a baby. And I guess in the context of trying to avoid the black swan, it's good to anticipate this type of accident. Well, let's have a think about how might it happen. Well, maybe the sign is on the front of an urban store in a busy road, and despite the schedule, it's obviously difficult sometimes when you think about a city to get a van to the front properly to do accidents. So a technician that's been assigned to do the job put off this time, it's just too difficult. The next time the maintenance schedule comes up, he puts the job off again, and maybe he keeps putting the job off because there's always seem to be more urgent priorities than the maintenance of a sign on the front of the store. These technicians do the same thing, and you can imagine this builds up time and time again. This job gets put off, and the incident happens. The sign falls off the front of the store, and an incident on your hands. The point here is somebody knows. You know, you've got all these technicians going out there and doing this maintenance, and how do you get to understand that information on a day-to-day basis? The choices, the decisions that people make, the misses, the issues. All those what seem like little trivial details that if you could understand, you could predict and prevent the black swan. So things out there in terms of collecting the right information, what is different? How can we get the information in a more effective way and get to understand some of these choices? A couple of years ago when we were thinking about this, and obviously we were trying to understand how we can drive this learning process a bit more effectively, we started to think that the answer might lie in social media. And for those people who don't really get social media, although I guess it's becoming very familiar to a lot of us, broadly it's the type of technology that's been built specifically to allow people to collaborate in a more effective way, a more natural way. The kinds of tools I'm talking about that are ubiquitous nowadays, the likes of Facebook or Twitter or within organisations, some of you might have heard of tools like Yammer and Jive. And what you've got with social media is suddenly here's a technology where billions of people across the globe are naturally communicating and sharing information. In fact, at Facebook alone, you've got 1.4 billion users on Facebook, which is a staggering number of people on this type of technology. I mean, they estimate that for users up to the age of 30, something like 98% of people are now on social media, and above that age, there's really high levels of participation in this. Thing that's really taken off. I talked about one or two of the barriers earlier in terms of safety, so safety being boring or complex or not part of my job. And media, for many people, can overcome a lot of this. So technology that very clearly people are often well familiar with. For a lot of us, is interesting than your old style sort of database software, if you like, because of the way it does promote collaboration. I don't know about you guys, but I've never needed training to use something like Twitter or Facebook. Actually, when you start to use it, it's a pretty natural type of technology to use. So let's see how we can use social media to overcome some of the specific barriers we see at the moment in terms of getting people to share information, to create what we call an effective learning culture, which is the holy grail of strong safety performance, people sharing the right kind of stuff, the real details, the information that you really need to prevent some black swan. What about from an employee's perspective? Well, we talked about one or two of the barriers. One of the other major ones we see in terms of employees sharing information is what we call the perceived blame barrier. So you can imagine with traditional methods of reporting, say like a post-box system or incident management system, when people put the information into that type of system, if it's not handled carefully enough, this sort of black hole effect where people put the information in and they're not sure what happens to it. And it's people to make many assumptions about how it's being used, whether it's being used at all, and even worse, whether it's going to be used from the perspective of blame. So if it's a contentious safety issue, then are they going to get some people coming back to them about that? How does social media overcome that? Well, of course, it's a much more transparent way of sharing information. So when people log in and have the ability to share safety issues, then they can get immediate feedback on that. So people know that they've shared the issue, it's transparent to the organisation, and maybe they'll get some instant feedback from some of their colleagues about it. Even better, if it's an issue they've got, then the whole nature of social media promotes collaboration, and perhaps they'll get a solution to their problem. And for the Scrum managers in the organisation, it's a chance to actually turn some of the negative messages about safety into positive ones. You can praise people for their involvement in sharing what might have seemed like trivial details, but as it's shared in such a transparent manner, I'm sure it's going to resonate with a lot more people than otherwise expect. So all sorts of barriers can be overcome from an employee's perspective with social media. For managers, one of the barriers we see with traditional reporting mechanisms is this perception of, we call it the I report it, you sort it perception. So a lot of the ways to share information at the moment, again, if you've got a sort of traditional accident incident management system, when people put the information in, the expectation is that a manager will automatically deal with it. When you've got small amounts of information, but you can imagine there's a bit of a catch-22 here, that as more information gets shared, that it's ever harder for managers to deal with that and close it out and follow it up correctly. So it actually starts to extinguish people sharing that information. The reality is, in large organisations, is most probably the issues, the safety issues or the ideas are already there in the organisation, and much more effectively you can use a social media type forum to just get people to communicate with each other, because the site in Mumbai has got an answer that Jim and Slough looking for, and actually it didn't need Jim's manager to give him the solution, it just needed managers to create that sense of connection between different people in the organisation. So again, for managers, it gives them a more effective way of managing, as well as being a significant time saver, which is always a big benefit. Safety team, benefits of using social media in this type of way to create a learning culture. What in a traditional sense, existing accident incident reporting systems, actually they promote a sort of metrics-driven approach. Because it's all about collecting the stats and the information, you focus on the stuff that's the highest frequency, like not necessarily the highest risk. It's just the way these systems have been built. Whereas with social media, what you've got is you're directly tapping into the organisational, if you like, the people at the sharp end that understand the risks. And because you're connecting directly with them, you can use them to really sense check where the risks are. So you're not just driven towards the stuff that happens the most often. You're actually starting to use this knowledge in the organisations to sense check that and find the stuff that's not been reported the most often, that perhaps carry the most risk. So it's giving you a really effective risk radar to give the most effective way of avoiding some of those black swans. So a brief overview there of some of the potential benefits that social media can bring to health and safety, why we think it's of real importance in terms of changing the way organisations collaborate and create a learning culture. When I started thinking about this 2 or 3 years ago, naturally we started to look at the tools out there and how could we use some of these principles with some of the existing tools to help organisations engage more effectively. And really there wasn't actually anything out there that was for the purpose. So we actually took the decision to get to it, to build a system. So engage, and again following the principle of trying to make this available to as many people as possible, because of course we want to create and understand all sort of smaller decisions as well as the riskiest information. We made it available over the internet so people can access it, whether they've got a browser, whether that's on a PC or a tablet. And we even created our own specific version, again, for people in the organisations out and about on a day-to-day basis, and we want to make it as easy as possible for them to be part of this organisational conversation about health and safety and risk in the workplace. So I'm going to log in, and I'm going to show you. So as you log into the system, one of the first things you'll notice is for those people that are familiar with this type of social media tool, it made it look similar to other social media tools out there. Again, talking about some of the barriers to sharing information, one of the biggest barriers is people wanting to, or not having the inclination to learn a new system. So if you can make it really, really similar to other tools out there, it means you've got a better chance of adoption. So very similar looking feed on the front page to many other social media tools, and very quickly you get that big impact from people being able to see this conversations about risk and safety in the organisation, and there's a powerful message in that you know, and actually there's loads of people there in the organisation thinking about, talking about and understanding health and safety and risks in the workplace, and that's what the feed allows you to do. I'll go through the feed in a minute and explain some of the ways that you can use this. One of the other key aspects of the system which marks it out as different to social media tools, I will say that the principles remain the same whatever social media tool you use to try and engage people with safety. One of the things we did feel was missing was the analytics side, so that you can understand all of the stats and the numbers and the risk that you're pulling out in a graphical sense, to balance that side by side with the feed, and would give you this most effective risk radar effect. And I'll do that in a minute. It would be naive of us to think that you could put a system like this in the organisation and expect people to adopt it straight away without some kind of hook to adopt it. We built the input to this, the catalyst to this collaboration around recognised safety things that we would expect people to report, give something meaningful for people to collaborate around. The other benefit being, obviously, as you input this stuff in, the different health and safety elements that you can use to drive the analytics. We picked off 4 different elements, all in the area of proactive safety. For those of you who know that triangle, obviously the proactive stuff at the bottom of the triangle, if you understand, learn from that and change unsafe behaviour to safe, then you're going to stop tomorrow's accidents, so anticipating the black swan. And the elements we picked to give people the ability to share behavioural discussions, and ideas. I'm going to go in and show you how quick and simple it is to add a behavioural discussion in the system. And the behavioural discussion for us is one of the most powerful, because that really gets to the root cause of many of the incidents and accidents in the workplace. So if we understand that, again, we can start to anticipate and prevent future accidents. So very simple. When you log into the system, you want to add a behavioural discussion, we're going to hit the add discussion and behavioural discussion button. So let's put myself in the position of somebody in the organisation, and just to note what we're seeing in terms of the demonstration is the JOMC version of the system. So every version of Engage is customisable to the organisation, the look, the feel, the drop-down boxes, even the language. And we do this so, again, it really resonates with people, and you've got a better chance of getting people on board the system. But this is the information specific to JOMC. As a member of JOMC, I'm going to pretend I went out this morning. I was driving with one of my colleagues to a meeting, and we had a discussion about some of the safety risks around driving. Obviously, for JOMC consultants, driving tends to be one of our major risks. Pick the type of conversation I had. This is in all areas of business. It doesn't have to just be about health and safety. It could be all areas of business. But I'm going to pick off, this is a health and safety conversation. Application of the discussion, again, dependent on your own organisation requirements. So let's say I was out travelling, as I suggested. I can pick up the date. We went to the meeting yesterday, and let's pick up today actually. This time, and we went to a meeting. We were travelling there just before lunch. And you can also select whether it was a group of people you're talking to or an individual. In this case, it was a one-on-one discussion, and I can pick off the type of person I spoke to. One thing, just to be aware from a cultural perspective, one of the things we do encourage on this type of social media forum is, if you want to make sure you are creating a transparent forum for people to share the trivial details, be careful about naming the people you speak to. We don't promote this in this type of way because we don't want to shut people down. We want people to be as open, as honest as possible. So nowhere on the screen do we name the person we speak to, but can categorise the type of job they do. So that's up to discussion. I've been driving with somebody who've had a discussion about driving risks, and now I'm going to add those behaviours into the system to accentuate the way that you can turn this into a positive, not just a negative, and log the fact that I've praised the person I was talking to about some aspect of their behaviour. So I'm going to select the behaviour associated on the list. So let's say again, behaviours that to your company. So say speed. So despite the fact maybe we were late for the meeting, the person I was with avoided the pressure and actually kept at the right speed throughout the journey. So I praise them for that. I'm going to add that behaviour system. So log the fact that we maybe talked about a different unsafe behaviour. We're still talking about driving, but because of being late for the meeting, despite the fact that we were going at the right speed, obviously then they almost missed a motorbike coming out of the side road, so the pressure was making it hard for the driver to see that. So in this case, notice we've got a bit more information we can fill in to help people managing the system understand some of the causes associated with unsafe behaviour. So let's see, in this case the cause was distracted, obviously time-related pressure. We corrected there, and then we talked about this, and also give the ability for perhaps a risk assessment. So let's say there's a medium chance of an accident occurring, and potentially a high consequence in this case if it did, because we almost, well, we might have hit a motorbike coming off the side road. And very simply, we can add the behaviour in. It shows you in very simple terms how we can take some information from a behavioural discussion or a behavioural observation and add that in the system to share so that we can learn from that. What we've also got the ability to do to finish off the system is promote this back to the feed. So obviously the core of the type of social media tools is you're taking that one-on-one learning, giving it into here to the statistical side of things, which is what these drop-down boxes are all about, but you've also put it back on this front feed to generate this sort of cross-business collaboration. So I'm going to put a discussion in here. So how is the discussion about the driving pressures to getting to a meeting? What is that? So once I hit in our system, we've registered all of that learning, so the praise for getting better at certain behaviours, all the causes behind unsafe behaviour, which we can look at in the stats later on. But we've also got that feed on the front screen, which allows other people in the organisation to comment on and collaborate on. And all this was a really straightforward comment. You can imagine if there was a more complicated issue, this would be a really great forum to drive some collaboration and some learning on the basis of that, or just simply raise awareness when you're seeing the same types of risks appear in the organisation over and over again. So that's the kind of information that we almost collect reactively, so proactive information collected in a reactive way, if you like. But one of the things we've been doing recently that we see as of great benefit is actually teaching people in the organisation to become champions for social media, so helping them understand how they can campaign using this type of collaborative tool, use some of the latest marketing materials to actually drive specific input. So I'm going to ask Claire just to go through an example of where we've used some of the latest marketing tools to actually drive people to input and share some of their thoughts on Engage.
Hi everybody, I'm Claire Solomon. As Mark mentioned earlier on in this session, I run the Solomon, which is the communication side of the business and the partnership that we have. So I'm just going to take you through an example of how a system, a tool like Engage, can be used to help to facilitate the involvement that comes from campaigns. You know, as a marketeer, all good campaigns will have some kind of a call to action. It's how you facilitate that call for action and measure it so that you know how successful the campaign is being. That can sometimes be a tricky thing to do, but with a tool like Engage, it can be really useful. So this is an example of a company, it was actually for Crossrail, who are using the phrase target zero. One of the problems with using any kind of a zero campaign is that lots of people don't really understand what it means and how they can get involved in it. So we changed it to how do I do target zero and created a series of posters. And Mark, if you can advance slides, you can see some of them here. So here's a couple of examples of the posters where we made heroes of people who put their way of doing target zero. So how do I do target zero? And two examples there of what people did to prove that they were getting involved in this campaign. Move forward again, Mark. So here's an example of one lady, Linda, who talked about how she did Target Zero, but at the end of it, the call to action was asking people, so how do you do Target Zero? In this case, we asked people to go online and send it via email. But had they been using this type of a system, it would be simple for people to have actually gone to the ideas section. And so Mark, I think, is going to go back now into the system to show you what we mean. So someone could have typed in an idea and the sorts of information that Mark has just gone through, showing you from a conversation. In here, somebody might be urged to write down what they're doing to Target Zero, and in the same way it will go onto the front feed and people can discuss it, and it's a great way of helping people to understand a very simple get out there. You know, everybody can get involved, so you can read other people's ideas and think, well, actually I'm doing that all the time as well. If that's worthy of being there and getting praise for, then so is my suggestion. It's all very public. People can have that collaboration with their colleagues that someone is going to do something about this and people are going to get involved. So it's just it's a really good way of showing a commitment using this ideas part of the Engage system. And of course you can customize it, so instead of add idea, in this case it could have been you know, how do I do Target Zero, or my way of doing Target Zero, or something like that.
Thanks, Claire. So this is what you've got the ability to do with the front feed of any social media tool, but obviously Engage here. And what you're doing really is changing the feedback loop. So rather than just pushing messages out, and you can see the high quality of some of the messages related to Crossrail that I was talking about, now you can link into people's specific feedback. So people are sharing back their ideas they have about how they're going to be part of a campaign like that. Because you've got things like the promote button and the follow button, then you can actually generate a real campaign of involvement. So getting the most popular ideas and getting involvement from people about what they want to see. So you can see with the drop-down buttons up here, you've got the ability to pull up those most popular by comments, those most popular by vote, so you can really campaign on this front feed. So this feed allows you to see things at the global level and all the information coming in from people across the world. What you've also got the ability with some of these filters to do is also drive this at a team level. So your managers or anybody in the business has got follow buttons, so they can follow certain discussions or follow their own team, so they get email alerts when somebody puts the information in. They can reorganize the feed so they just see the information related. So it's also a great way of promoting local involvement and local collaboration, as well as it's a great way of promoting collaboration across the organisation. So many different ways of using that feed, providing message being, it really changes the nature of feedback and gives people a real incentive to be part of that organisation-wide safety conversation. So that's the narrative part of the system. How we can use some of that. What you've also got with Engage is the analytics part of the system, and again, following our principle of trying to get as great an involvement in the safety conversation as possible, we've made the analytics available to everybody in the system, and we've made them as simple as possible. What we don't want is somebody sharing some information in the system, yet getting the incentive from the front feed, not understanding what kind of impact it's having in terms of the overall picture. So with these analytics really simple to understand, and for anybody in the business to be able to drill down and understand what the potential accidents and incidents are, and what the kinds of things are that you might need to do about them. Now this dashboard takes a minute to upload because it's pulling out so much information. And you can see here some of the types of information that you can get, which I say anybody can look at. So you've got the sort of type and stuff. So how engaged is the business? How much are people collaborating? How much collaboration is happening in different areas? And then
we have a question from John. Just unmute you, John.
Hi.
Hello. I must tell you, I'm very much enjoying the when you're going down through this on the dashboard and actually going into the software, and I mistakenly pushed raise my hand because I was going to write a note instead, and I mistakenly pushed.
Right.
And I was going to tell her that I am so. This is what I came on here for, and see how this works. It's much more than I thought it was. And unfortunately, I have to go to a meeting with a client, and that's what I was going to write and say I have to go. So, but thank you very much. I am getting the link for the engage part on the website to someone from my company. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you
very much.
Kind comments, and for you and anybody else out there, we are recording this, so you'll be able to send you a link to the video to show us later on if you want. Okay, so this overall dashboard, it gives you the ability for anybody in the organisation to dive in and understand what kind of collaboration is happening and where the major risks are. Critically, alongside all the sort of details about how engaged people are, you also get information about what people are talking about. So I can actually drill into here. A picture. Oops. You clicked the wrong button here. Let me come back to the dashboard. So, as I say, all those collaborative stats there, a picture of what people are actually talking about. And one of the things we're emphasising as part of understanding that detail is not just the sort of negative aspects. So you can look at the amount of times that people are behaving unsafely and where those areas are, and obviously filter by different organisational levels. You also understand where people are behaving safely. And one of the things that we want our different marketing campaigns to do, which we'll talk about in a minute, is emphasise the things that we want to reinforce as much as the things we want to understand in terms of risk. So click into that. Always the way when you click into these things, you always hang on. Let me just click into to individual reports and pull it up this way. Just a second. It works when you're demonstrating it. This graph shows you, and it's usually linked through from the dashboard, is overall sort of safe versus unsafe behaviours that you can see in the system. So as I said before, you can really understand what people are talking about and where things are going wrong and where you want to praise people. So you've got the sort of list of behaviours, and you'll see that from this where I input the information, and you can actually drill down underneath it. So all the things we identified through the discussion I shared before was the driving issue, and I can go into this bar, and surprisingly we've got lots of interesting information around driving given the information here. Actually get underneath that and start to understand the different areas of driving that we should be focused on. So, for instance, we've got quite a bit of information about safe speed, which is quite an interesting one. Staying alert there, seat belt. So the analytics and the stats, you can really unpack and sort of do the layers, if you like, and understand where the major risks are, and as I say, filter down by organisational level and type of person you've spoken to, etc. So really getting a handle on your risk and where you need to be focused on where that black hole might happen. But of course, the story doesn't stop there. Not only have you got all of these to understand. Because the social media feed on the front, you can balance that off with and the discussions and the information that people are giving you. If I wanted, I could do a search on certain aspects of the field to feed rather, to sort of balance that off against each other. Again, building up this picture of understanding of total risk, not just the numbers and stats, which are interesting in itself, narrative and the feedback you're getting from people in the organisation. And of course, now you're getting all of this really useful information, we start to use this in a very targeted and high impact way. And I'll invite Claire back on again about some of the ways you can use this information in a very targeted way. Now we understand it.
Yeah, so very to put together communications campaigns based on the types of risks and accidents that companies are having. But of course, we've got so much more to go on when we know about what are the behaviours that are triggering these and what are popular point of interest that could be used in that sort of information. So all of that information that's coming out of this system is, I think of it as like your own personal crystal ball, because you perhaps see what sorts of accidents are likely to happen in your organisations by analysing this data. Click on to the next slide and show, here's an example of, this is what we call a huddle card. So we developed a whole range of these for RBS. The key principles for a manager who is managing this particular area. And you can see there on the right, it has some quick wins which could all be taken from this valuable information, the top tips, the ideas that people are providing in a system like this, and ideas about how to make it happen yourself, how to get the team involved. The contents of a piece of information like this can be so better, more informed than it would be if we were just relying on hearsay or general information that's out there. So we can make the information so much more focused. They use information that's on the system. When you're managing your communications campaigns, you'll be able to see what your top risks are, what behaviours that are these risks to either be mitigated or not, and be useful and proactive communication campaign rather than being very reactive and just looking at the data, lagging indicators that you're getting from your company, having lots of accidents on the road or work issues or whatever it might be, and we better do some communications to make sure that doesn't happen. We be very reactive with this information and make it very targeted. If you use the data in the right way, your communications are so much more better informed.
Yeah, we've also, and just to build on, we've also got an example of how to use the information. One of the benefits you've got with these types of stats, of course, is only you see the picture from the total organisation, you correct this down as for very specific organisational, and if you've got the detail in there, you can locate either in a specific cost or specific business, and actually that's our information. People on the ground who need to be aware of risk in very specific areas in the business. Again, collecting slide a very specific example of how maybe during an induction or training session you can use this very specific information to help understand the risk.
I thought it's be excited to show you another very new interactive tool that we're developing. This is to the Google Street Tours technology. It's a 360-degree tour of any establishment. It's basically, we take a still camera, a bit of special software, we can create these of specific areas. The one is for the good look like, but also the key points and areas where risks can go wrong, where things can go wrong. So for a new starter starting at View Cinemas, they pull this up on their iPad or on their laptops and can actually take a tour of the site to show them exactly what's going on. So Mark, if you just turn us around the other way, you can see here we can walk forwards. All the little blue information bars are information pieces, so I'll show you one of those in a minute. So now we're in a back corridor, so we can walk on a back corridor. Now here, these points are where software discussions have come up with specific points and risks. So if you click on the little blue information bar, you'll see there can pop up a little hazard information about, you know, be careful when you're walking along here, because sometimes people spill the water, carry it through to the refrigeration unit around the corner or whatever it might be. It is quite a safe environment actually, but this was used, as I say, to show quality and risk points. But just imagine if you're doing an induction like this but for a high-risk environment. We're about to do one of these for a wind farm next, so we'll be a walk-through 3D tour of what it's being on the ship, what it's like to cross over into the wind turbine that's offshore, and all of the risks and hazards that are involved in that. So you could actually show a contractor or someone who's coming to work on this in this environment what it looks like to work in there before they even set foot into that risky environment. So we've got lots of clients who are really interested in this at the moment, and certainly with the Engage tool, it will give you some specific messages that we can plot into the tool there. Do you, Mark?
Yeah, so you can see here using social media, you're getting people more engaged and you're driving that collaboration, but you're getting much more information and much more specific information. And I talked about trivial details. Obviously they're not really trivial, they're the small details, the critical ones that allow you to build up a really specific picture of risk. And you can use that specific picture in sorts of different ways to help feed this information back from people and help them individually anticipate, manage risk, as well as doing it from a sort of strategic level, if you like. Pretty much it. I can get back to my presentation. I guess my question is does it work? Does this stuff really make a difference? Well, it's very hard to pull out specific examples, because often we find this type of tool is rolled out with all sorts of different elements, but this is an example from BAE where it was used, and you can see it's part of what they're doing. It has had a significant impact, and it's kind of common sense if you think about it. The more ways you can get people to engage and collaborate around safety, and the more you can create this learning culture, the better you're going to be able to anticipate and prevent risk. So it all just helps break down some of those barriers and make health and safety that much more interesting. So I've gone through the background to the problem, looked at social media and the impact, and given you some ways of how we're using that, and we'll continue to use that in the future. I'd like to open the floor for any specific questions if we have them.
Stuart has sent me a question, and he has no mic, so he can't ask you. He's asked, how different is the system to remote safeguard? What stratification?
I'm afraid I'm not familiar with safeguard, so I'd have to come back to you to answer that question. We haven't often seen many systems with as many features with relation to social media, which is why we built our own. But I'm not familiar with Revo, so I can't comment, unfortunately.
If you've got any more questions, if you'd like to put your hands up. No, we've got no hands up.
Okay, thank you very much. As I said to you at the start, thank you very much for taking your time out today. Hopefully you found it interesting and informative. We will be sending you the link to the video afterwards, so you can watch back or share with any colleagues. And obviously on an ongoing basis, we've got upcoming webinars and masterclasses which are free to attend to learn more about what we do, or feel free to contact us if you want to understand a bit more about some of the stuff we've been talking about today. So thank you very much from myself and Claire and Sinead, and hopefully we'll speak to you all soon.
Thank you.